So after the massacre, they destroyed what we were building, and we worshiped in the basement until we could raise enough funds to build the sanctuary. And when we started building the sanctuary in 1925, because we got no insurance money, because we got no support from the city, state, nor country, and the city actually dissuaded people from helping us out, saying they don't need any resources, we got everything taken care of, which was not true. The members of this church, who had just lost their own homes, just lost their own businesses, just lost their loved ones and friends, and people who just left Tulsa because they just got tired of dealing with the racism, they came back to Vernon, and not only did they come to worship, they came and wrote checks. After they had just rebuilt their own houses, restarted their own businesses, they had enough resources left over to come and support the building of this church. And so for those who gave like large amounts, we put their names on stained glass windows. And so these are kind of like our donor walls, so to speak. And so if you see organizations like a choir, that choir raised money collectively to put their organization on a window. So as you walk around, you will see names of people like S.E. Berry, who was one of the few blacks in Tulsa that had his own airplane and had his own transportation company. You will see people like S.M. Jackson, who owned one of the largest funeral homes in Greenwood, and he was the only one that actually buried folks, two people who died during the massacre. You will see people's names like R.T. Bridgewater, who was one of the first black physicians, and J.T. Owens, and you'll just see these people, J.T.A. West, you will just see their names all throughout. Barney Cleaver, who was one of the peace officers. You will see these names throughout the church on these stained glass windows. But unfortunately, because they are original to the church, these stained glass windows were put in when the church was built. Starting in 1925, ending in 1928 was the construction. They've never been restored since, right? And so, because as I stated earlier, because we had to pay for the sanctuary and all the upkeep on just paying that note every month, the regular maintenance kind of fell by the wayside. And so for decades, we have had deferred maintenance. So now the woodwork around the stained glass windows all rotted, and so the frame is falling out. Like as we speak, I can show you a piece of a frame from that window that fell out. It's in our little alleyway, and another piece is already bowing out. If you come by here, you won't be surprised to see birds nesting in our window frames. And if you look closely at the windows, you will see cracks in them that have been covered up by tape. The lead, because it's so old, has started to protrude out because it's melting. But these stained glass windows tell a historical story. They are in their current shape. They're still appraised at over $1 million. That's what baffles me. And the artwork, they're all hand done. After every major tragedy in the Bible, be it the flood, be it the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, you name it, God always finds a way of saving a remnant, right? Always. And I'm so thankful that historic Vernon A.M.E. Church is that remnant that God has preserved and placed a hedge of protection around it. No other explanation can explain why these stained glass windows that are cracked and the woodwork around them is deteriorated. No other explanation can explain why they're still here. But even with that being the case, I believe that God has saved these windows for such a time as this, to have people who are benevolent to come and help keep these windows around for another 100 years. So I'm confident that God will speak to somebody's heart, even if they're not the most religious. If you care about history, and if you care about retaining this legacy of Black Wall Street, that something that was built by the survivors, you would want to help make sure these stained glass windows are restored and kept for years to come.